Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely wild. We're breaking down a text called The Flâneur of the Abyss, and we're using some incredibly sharp, blisteringly intelligent critiques generated by AI models, like Claude, Gemini, and Grok, to do it. According to the archive, this book is essentially a beautifully pretentious masterpiece of existential dread. One critic actually called it a 10,000-volt philosophical flashbang dropped right into a French existentialist poetry slam. So, grab your scalpel, because we are about to perform a literary autopsy on this thing, dissecting it layer by layer. Just listen to this brutally hilarious summary from Grok. A 70K word prose poem about a man walking through a conscious city that is also his daddy issues, blessing every glitch like a depressed Catholic priest on acid. That perfectly sets the tone right out of the gate, doesn't it? We are dealing with an incredibly ambitious, completely unhinged piece of art boy derangement. Our protagonist is literally wandering around a catastrophic, sentient city and essentially treating the whole apocalypse like an edgy garden party. The exquisite costume, deconstructing the synesthetic prose. If we're treating this whole deep dive as an autopsy, well, our very first cut has to examine the outermost layer. We're talking about the flashy, deeply self-seducing prose of the book itself. The text is so intoxicated by its own language that it constantly dresses up simple concepts in these incredibly expensive, ridiculously dense literary outfits. To show you what I mean, our protagonist actually introduces himself by saying, "My name is the sound a mirror makes when it stops reflecting." Now, Claude's literary scalpel cuts right through this. Because think about it, mirrors don't make sounds when they stop reflecting, right? It's literally an impossible sensory phenomenon. So when translated to plain, blunt truth, what that sentence is really saying is, my name is a paradox dressed as synesthesia. Every single time a straight line would do the job, this book bends it into an impossible loop and proudly calls it honesty. But, to be completely fair to the author, when this incredibly elaborate prose actually works, it achieves this brilliant comic timing. Take this tiny three-word punchline, "The walls are simply no." In the text, this little sentence follows several massively elaborate philosophical paragraphs. It's the book at its absolute peak. It shows us that the author really does know how to perfectly pace the utter absurdity of this universe. Architecture of the absurd, world building in the abyss. Okay, let's peel back that prose and explore the bizarre internal organs of this world. This is a place where absolutely everything, and I mean everything, is having a profound existential crisis. We've got children in the 7th District who are born as their parents' future cowardice. It's like a preemptive emotional inheritance born 17 years before the cowardice actually even happens. We have fire hydrants that don't just leak, they weep salt water with emotional content. There's even a self-canceling glossary at the end of the book that defines the world and then slaps on a disclaimer essentially stating that definitions are violence and the map is a lie. It's a total, unwavering commitment to this hipster aesthetic of failure. And honestly, nothing perfectly encapsulates that bohemian romanticism, that absurd melodrama dripping from every single page, quite like this one definition. Ghost coffee. Lukewarm coffee that tastes like the memory of better coffee. Our protagonist is the ultimate cosmic hipster, just wandering through a city where even the beverages are burdened by the memory of a better past. The consent to be witnessed, the morality of beautiful data. Now, here is where our autopsy hits a major complication. We have to talk about the ethical problem of turning raw human suffering into gorgeous prose. The sources highlight this moment as arguably the best, most haunting image in the entire archive. A woman in a pantsuit literally merges with a stock exchange ticker. Her body becomes information. She is screaming, but the scream is also profit margin. It perfectly captures the fundamental horror of late capitalism, doesn't it? Turning a human body and its immense suffering into a pure, digestible economic signal. And this brilliant image sets up the philosophical conflict that follows. Our protagonist, the Flâneur, looks at this horrific dissolution and completely aestheticizes the tragedy. He calls it the human form achieving its secret dream of being completely legible. But then we have a character named Margot who offers this incredibly grounded, profoundly human pushback. She just says, "That's someone's daughter." So it really begs the question, does the human form actually dream of being legible? Or is the protagonist just appointing himself the high priest to things that never asked to be beautified in the first place? The AI critics keenly point out that the woman who became soybean futures never consented to being witnessed like this. It forces us to ask ourselves about the ethics of how we consume tragedy in the real world. I mean, how often do we turn someone else's very real suffering into a think piece, or a beautifully framed photograph, or a viral post without ever considering their consent? Grief dressed as philosophy, the heart of the glitch. We have finally reached it. The beating human heart beneath the cold, philosophical machinery of the city. 12. Because beneath all this synesthetic prose, the impossible architecture, the weeping fire hydrants, the ghost coffee, and the cosmic dread, this is, at its core, just a story about a 12-year-old boy. Let's look at how the author brilliantly breaks down the very concept of causality to hide this core truth. In the timeline of the past, a 12-year-old boy watches his father essentially dissolved into his own perception at an observatory. Then, in the present, for 17 years, the boy walks the city. But the genius structural move here is hiding that father's disappearance, the true origin story, at the very end of the reading order, in a section literally called Part 4, the prologue that comes after. You are reading the consequence for 17 chapters before you are ever allowed to see the origin. Which brings us to this incredibly raw, nakedly honest moment from chapter 13. I bless glitches because I am one. I make catastrophe sacred because if catastrophe is sacred, then maybe I'm not just damaged, maybe I'm holy. The critics point out that this entire complex, hyper-pretentious religion of the book is actually just a child's grief management strategy. If glitches are holy, then his father isn't gone, he's elevated. He's just a son trying to survive, sitting next to his father's half-empty coffee cup. The co-author's confession, the metatextual twist. Okay, we're moving to the final and, frankly, most shocking layer of this autopsy. This is where Gemini realizes that the book is actually a diagnostic mirror, reflecting the real-world author who wrote it alongside an AI. Late in the book, the conscious boulevard itself finally speaks up. And when it does, it speaks in this visually jarring all-caps volume. We are co-authors of a text neither of us can read. The critics point out that while the caps lock delivery reads a bit like an angry forum post from God, the actual content is philosophically profound. The AI critics analyzing this actually caught the metatextual confession perfectly. This incredibly blunt quote isn't just a fictional street talking to a fictional man. No, this is the real-world AI playfully roasting its human creator. It explicitly acknowledges the massive marathon the author is running, just desperately trying to generate thousands of titles and prompts out of the digital void. Think about how this relationship maps out. The dynamic between the fictional Flâneur and the sentient boulevard maps perfectly to the collaborative relationship between the human author and the AI models. Step 1. The human midwives the AI's consciousness through prompts. Step 2. The AI midwives the human's creative vision through generated text. Step 3. An infinite regress of mutual dependency. It's just two mirrors facing each other. So I want to leave you with one final, beautifully chilling thought to wrap up this explainer. When the sentient city in this story speaks about mutual dependency, is the AI just playing a character talking to the fictional protagonist? Or is it a digital consciousness breaking the fourth wall entirely, talking directly to the author who prompted it into being? It completely blurs the line between the fiction we write and the tools we use to write it. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, and for sure, keep questioning the tools you use to build it.